So, we're here in England, and here is Ellesmere. So, Ellesmere Lake in Ellesmere, Shropshire. And the ducks are all wanting something, because we have an ice cream. So, first quest of the trip is to go find Dad's bench. I know roughly where it is, but I'm not exactly sure. It's over there somewhere, hopefully with a nice view. Here we go, we found him. And what does he have? He has one of his favourite, he used to call them monkey puzzle trees. Actually, I think it's redwood. But that's a very pleasant outlook. Another one of those great big trees. So here it is. Here it is, and we're on his bench.
Weirdly, my name. It's kind of strange to read.
Yeah, and of course Mike is sitting on Mike's bench. Wonderful husband, dad, granddad, and brother. Forever in our hearts. So this is where we sit. How about that? And the lilies are just about to come out and flower. This is a little cafe at the top of the Bear Steps in the middle of the old part of town. Building just around the corner was 1450. It's such a great little spot. Massive big, so that's a horse chestnut, that's a conker tree. And that looks a bit like an elm tree. These look like hazelnut trees, but they're the wrong size and shape, hazelnut trees. So I'm guessing that's an old elm. And that could be a hazelnut, the one at the end. But that's the coffee house that we're having coffee in. Right there. So this is a place called the Bear Steps, middle of Shrewsbury, and the reason it's called the Bear Steps is that is where they brought the bears up to do the bear fighting in the square that was here. Duke of Shrewsbury used to live in that white house. Well, all of those houses.
Just go there.
And he used to have the bear fights for sport, for fun, outside in the centre of town. So people talk about post and beam and pegs. This is, well, the top half here is 1453. Bottom half has been replaced, but that's original. 1450. It's pretty amazing. That's Grope Lane. Look how close the buildings are to each other. It used to be a real problem when they were throwing the debris out. And the cobble is reinforced with stone for where the cart tracks go. So this is the main road from Ellesmere to Shrewsbury. 60-mile-an-hour speed limit, about as wide as a normal single lane in the States. Just coming into a village called Cockshut. Yeah. Quite funny, really. Dad used to live in a little village that is just over from here, down a little lane, when he was 5 and 6, I think, in Burlton. Just a little video of a little town. Beautiful sunny day. It's about 70 degrees, blue sky, a little chilly in the breeze, but very dry, very nice. this is Burlton. Yeah. And as I drive through, of course, I remember all the stories. He lived down that lane there. And on a corner, it's this one here behind the stone wall. There's a little house. And in that house lived Ginny Maddox. And Ginny Maddox was the village witch, according to the stories that I've heard. And the kids used to taunt her by calling her name. And she would come out and she would tell them that she knew who they were and she knew their parents. And if they didn't run away, she would go to their houses. They, of course, believed that she meant after midnight on her broomstick. Probably not true, but it's a story I will remember. As this week, in fact, we're just a few days away from the anniversary of my dad's passing last year. And I will remember every single story he has ever told me. The true ones get embellished by me as I repeat them, because we have to continue the family tradition of the silly stories. And of course I've spent the last day with my son telling such stories ad nauseum, and I'm heading over to my brother's. Yep, this is a 2-lane road, believe it or not. This is Harmer Hill. It's where my Aunt Ivy lived until she was in her early 90s, and then she was taken care of in a care home in Shrewsbury. And she lived down that lane there we just passed, which is Lower Road. Ivy and Pete had a incredible early life. Her husband Pete was the original person from one of the workhouses in Scotland that rebelled, and he escaped with a dozen or so of his friends that also lived there. So workhouses in those days in the cities were not pleasant for kids, and he would have to, his only crime was to be an orphan, and to have, of course, little to eat, no pleasures of any kind. So he took a dozen of his friends and escaped from the back roads of Glasgow up into the Highlands, where they found a crofter's cottage, abandoned, disused, disrepair, and lived from catching rabbits and from scouring the woodland for things to eat. Apparently rabbit stew with fiddleheads was the favourite meal. And they lived there until they were discovered by a local farmer, and then it was called in and they were picked up and taken back to the workhouse. But they lived there for a good month, I believe. And it was winter time, not pleasant, but a lot more pleasant than being locked up in the back streets of Glasgow. I think at the time he was the oldest child and was about 12 years old, and the youngest kid that he took with him was half his age, 5 or 6. So good to listen to great aunt stories too. Dad's elder sister Ivy lived till she was 97. So we're approaching Shrewsbury, which is one of the biggest towns in Shropshire. I'll be hitting the interstate in just a few minutes. And Shrewsbury is famous for the Battle of Shrewsbury, large battle fought, I think, in the 1500s. I could easily be wrong. Famous because it was rather short of bowmen, and the king at the time felt like bowmen were a deciding factor in many of the battles. So he passed it into law that every yeoman and every male descendant of a yeoman had to practice archery for at least 1 hour every single Sunday. And it was the only acceptable reason to not attend church. So many did not think it was such a bad idea. And that is why the English like archery and are fairly good at it. Well, Dad was one for poetry, I remember, as I'm driving down this stretch. This is the M54, so this is, the equivalent of an interstate. Light traffic is, it's 8:30 at night. Sun will be down in about an hour or so. It's not summer solstice by any means, but it'll be dark at 9:30. In the middle of the summer, it'll be dark much later, probably just after 10 o'clock. One of Dad's favourite poems was from Tolstoy, I think. But then again, it might have been Tennyson, because they do tend to merge a little. I know it wasn't Robbie Louis Stevenson, because that was a different story altogether. But the poem went something like, on Wenlock Edge, the wood's in trouble, the willow bends, and the reekin heaves. Wind would always be blowing up there. It's not particularly tall, but it's 1,000 feet above ground level. And that is the reekin that was heaving in the storm when Tennyson wrote his poem. Apparently, if you believe the stories. So the Devil's Chimney is here, isn't it? So Dad would tell us these stories about this place he used to come to and climb when he went to school here, which I believed until I saw where it was and what it was that he said he climbed. But this is a beautiful area, and here is the Devil's Chimney. I could not imagine a 5-year-old boy being allowed, and these cliffs are not fenced and they're wide open, which is very typical for an English country park thing, or just commonplace that people come. Extremely dangerous, you might think, but this is one of my favorite spots. It's a beautiful, quiet little spot. It's not too windy for the drone. I think it'll cope. So that's down into the valley of, into the village of Grinzel. Absolutely nothing has changed with this view for a very long time. I was going to try and fly the drone, but I can't. It automatically will not let me take off from here because it's a controlled airspace. That just over there is a military-controlled airspace for the Shawbury RAF station. Bunch of helicopters flying around, so there's a good reason for it. But the interesting thing is that it will not let me try to take off. I wasn't going to fly around, but I was going to video record just scooching over the edge here and turning around and going back or something, but it won't let me, which is a wonderful thing. So it's Saturday, busy today in Shrewsbury. Walking around, we're actually going to a Japanese restaurant. But that's a nice old building. Very nice. Yeah, so first written reference to Shrewsbury was 901. Shrewsbury Castle was built in 1068, all the way through to, look at this, Thomas Telford said that this church was about to collapse in 1788. And it's still here. So Thomas Telford was not right. Except it's a sandstone church, and sandstone does not take water for very long. Well, very long, right? 1,000 years. Just 1,000 years. Holy mackerel. Gotta touch that building. See if it tells me anything. Very few graves in the churchyard. Very, very few. And there'll be a reason. Don't know what it is. Oh, here we go. Here's another little plaque that's specific to the church. And it's called Old St. Chad's. Oh, and this was a crypt. And this crypt collapsed. Interesting. Excavation of the crypt in 1889. The old church was demolished here in 1788, following the collapse of the central tower. So Thomas Telford was not wrong. The church did collapse. Interesting. And we just had Japanese food in that building right there, just across the street. Beautiful old trees. These trees have been here for a long, long time. Not like the yew trees in Overton that are more than 1,000 years old, but these are pretty good. Big old elm, copper beech, and I think the big one is a white oak. Yeah, big one's a white oak. So I'm guessing this is the only part of the original church that is still standing. Interesting. So this is the castle market. It's been here for a very long time, been here since 1791. They still have markets here today. The old market square. Very neat. And they're just packing up the market that was here today. There's another timber frame, 1392. That one. In great shape. Never been repaired by the looks of things. I don't see any of the beams that have been replaced. And then right next to it is that brand new modern house. 1709. Yeah, that's modern, right? Like a brand new brick building next to the old one. And it's not that I promote or defend this automotive behavior. I'm just letting you know since I'm doing the video. But this is a beautiful part of the country. And believe it or not, we are not doing anything illegal right now. This is a 60-mile-an-hour road. Cattle grade on the road, keep the Welsh sheep out of England. We are in Wales and have been for a while, but that's the edge of the Highlands where there's no fences to keep the sheep off the road. Big storms last night washed down quite a bit of debris. There's nothing wrong with the gearbox or the clutch. Yes, I think this is the final proof. Now you can relax. Everything's good. So this is Horseshoe Pass. This is the pass in the first row of hills as you go into North Wales. So this was the easiest way up a long, long time ago. And here is the Ponderosa Cafe and sheep. This place is inundated with motorcycles. Not so much today because it's raining. Came in. So Michael parked his alongside a few other rather swanky cars that are here. So Spec S, what is it? It's
It's nothing like a Spec S. This is just about.
Oh, but it's an R16.
S15.
Oh God.
Want to start again?
I will start again. What is it?
S15.
S15. Nissan Silvia. Parked next to the Aston. Oh, very nice. That Toyota's pretty swift looking. Right. And then the new Jag. What is the Alpine? What is that?
Renault Alpine.
Renault Alpine. Never heard of it. Yeah, never heard of it. This guy got his top down, eating breakfast, forgot that it's raining. This looks like a Turbo S. Be interesting to see if it is. Since we're driving like we're car fanatics, we should at least act like it. It doesn't say, but that is a Turbo S. Very nice. Time. A lot of motorcycles arrived just before we left. It's one of my favorite little valleys here. crossing, right?
Yeah.
Very Shropshire-esque, isn't it? Except for the heavy plant crossing. So we need to explain what a heavy plant crossing is. Like a very large cabbage crossing the road. So you stopped. Maybe you didn't. You didn't stop or you did stop? You can turn it off. So this is Colmere. The big lake is, in fact the big lake is just Ellesmere, isn't it? So it's Ellesmere and then Whitemere, Blackmere and Colmere. They're all meres. And the reason they're called meres and not lakes is that they were carved out in the Ice Age and a big chunk of ice sat here and melted and caused a mere. So this is Sunday lunch at the Swan in Marbury. Never been to Marbury before. It's about a 30-minute drive from Ellesmere. Has a spectacular oak across the street. I think I'll go across the street and do a little bit on that oak. Nice old house, probably circa, could be late 1400s, most likely 1500s. And this is the middle of Marbury. Great big, nice, wonderful old oak. This is Mowbray Church, Norman Church, big square tower. I would say would be not particularly old, 1600s probably, but it's in a great spot. Very nice place. Well, that answers my pondering outside. The first vicar was 1530. All through to the latest person. So this church is a little older than I thought it was. Very nice woodwork. Typical English church. It's a Sunday, but there's nobody here. Very nice. It's very cool in here. It's very hot outside. Nice big heavy door. Wow. It's Whittington Castle. It seems like everything's about 20 minutes away, but this is about 20 minutes away. I don't know the history of the castle. I'm about to find out. I gotta read something. Not much left of it, to be honest. It's the gatehouse is still here, and a little bit of the front of the castle. Most of it is in ruins. Nice thick doors though, huh? Four-inch thick oak, with of course a little door to get in. Looks like a wedding chapel. Well, I haven't been in this room before. So I would say that's a nice place to have a wedding. So this armor was found in the moat when they were cleaning it out. Kind of interesting. This looks like a jail cell, which of course it's not. It's a living room of some kind. It had a big fireplace. That looks like a large window, and then there's a collapsed part that's been repaired. I did check to see if I could shoot a video from the drone, and yeah, they said no. So, can't do it. I wonder how many people have had their bums in this seat over here. I imagine quite a few. This would be living quarters. Castles are neat places. Oh, looks like I was wrong. So, according to this, it was inhabited for thousands of years. Iron Age stuff. And in 1220, it became a castle, moated castle. Probably more like that image there in the 1220. Well, no, so here's 1115. It was dikes, wooden defenses, and moats. By 1223, it became stone and oak. And then by 1320, it became quite an impressive place. Some swanky rich person lived in it. Quite an impressive place. Most of the wall stone's gone to build the village, right, and all the bridges around here. Very thick internal walls. Maybe it was a square keep, surrounded then by a curtain wall on the outside, perhaps, and this wall is so thick because it was very tall. I'll have to have another look at the diagram over there, see if I can figure it out. It's a pretty place to be. Hot sunny day. We're off down to the river in a minute, down to Uberstock, down to the boat for lunch. Today is unfortunately my last day. Anyone would think I was fascinated with trees and architecture, which I'm starting to realize I probably am, because I just love fully mature, amazing trees. I have no idea what some of these are. That's a pine of a type I've never seen. I have no idea what that is. Every tree here is 100 feet tall. And they're not all different. I think I was exaggerating earlier. Some of the conker trees are just so impressive. That one there's a conker tree too. Every kid for miles around would come here, get his conkers. Not that anyone knows what conkers are nowadays. Alright, so just in case anyone thinks that the United Kingdom is in fact just England, the United Kingdom is actually the combination of a bunch of countries. And no, they're not just parts of England that have a funny accent. They are actually entirely different countries that have their entirely different language. Here's Welsh.
A'i chwaer yn chwarae ar sudlenni Y tu allan i gartre'r teulu yn Llydawn o Sadwrn, mae cymydog o'r iseldiroedd wedi cael ei arestio. Rhoi mwy o lais i gêm bêl-droed y menwod a chlybiau ar lawr gwlad. Dyna o beth Cymdeithas Bêl-droed Cymru drwy gyflwyno newidiadau i'r drefn arferol o ethol cynrychiolwyr i'r cyngor. Mae'r enwebiadau yn cael y fori a'r gobeith yw darbwyso mwy o bobl o wahanol gefndiroedd i
So this is a great way to end a vacation, hitting traffic just outside of Manchester. But it's expected. This is right at the point where I start to think of the vacation being over. On the right hand side in the distance is the escarpment, and at the top is Beeston Castle, hanging on the edge of the hill like a gateway to Wales, defending it. Beeston Castle was there the days when where I'm driving was ocean. Now there's 5 miles between me and the ocean. Mostly a place called Runcorn, a whole bunch of petrochemical plants, and most recently wind turbines.